Chapter 4, Maharashtra before the times of Shivaji Maharaj. Standard 7th. Subject History. At the beginning of the 17th century, most of the territory in Maharashtra was under the control of Nizam Shah of Ahmednagar and Adil Shah of Bijapur. The Mughals had entered Khandesh. The objective was to expand their power in the south. There were settlements of Siddhi people who had come from Africa along the coastline of Konkan. So you can see in the map here the coastline of Konkan, that is the western coastline of India, is shown. The competition and conflict amongst the Portuguese, the British, the French, and the Dutch who had come from Europe was getting intense during this period. There was stiff competition amongst them. For what? To capture the markets for trade. The Portuguese had already established their rule in Goa and also in Vasai on the western coastline. The British, the Dutch, and the French had found an entry through the medium of trading companies by setting up factories. All these powers assessed the strength of other powers, kept themselves safe, and tried to dominate as much as possible. This conflict had created instability and insecurity in Maharashtra. These different people from Europe were called Topkar on the basis of their customary headgear. It is necessary to get acquainted with the village, Moja, kasbah, and Paragana to understand the nature of settlements in that period, as also of the officers that formed a link between the rulers and their subjects, and also the markets and the craftsmen. Pargana was made up of many villages. Generally, the headquarters of a pargana was called kasbah. A village smaller than a kasbah was called moja. Let us get acquainted in brief with village, kasbah, and pargana respectively. Village, that is moja. Most of the people lived in villages. A village was also called moja. The chief of the village was the patil. So in this table you can see the chief of the village, that is the vatandar, is patil. He used to try to bring maximum land under cultivation. When there was any dispute in the village, the patil resolved it and made peace. A kulkarni helped the patil in his work. So below patil, he was assisted by kulkarni. Okay. The kulkarni kept the record of the revenue that was collected. There were various artisans in the village. Okay, they had hereditary rights regarding their occupation. What do you mean by hereditary rights? Like whatever occupation the parent is or the father is observing, the same occupation the child can continue. The peasants gave a share of their agricultural produce to the artisans for the services they rendered to the village community. This share was known as baluta. So this is about village, moja. Now let's learn about kasbah. A kasbah was like a big village. It was usually the headquarters of a pargana. Example, Indapur Kasbah of Indapur Pargana. Vai Kasbah of Vai Pargana were the headquarters of those parganas. Agriculture was the main occupation. There were skilled artisans like carpenters, blacksmiths, etc. in a kasbah. There was usually a market which was called Peth adjacent to a kasbah. The Sheti and Mahajan were the Watandars. So look in the table, you will see that the Sheti and Mahajan were the Watandars of the Peth. The setting up of a Peth was the job of the Shets and Mahajans. For that, they received some land from the government and some rights from the villagers. The Mahajan maintained the account of the Peth. So, like this, you have division of administration even during that time. Next, do you know, as per the order of Virmata Jijabai, a Peth was established in Pashan near Pune. It was called Jijapur. Malpura, Khelpura, Paraspura, Vithapura in Aurangabad are also new Peths established in the name of Maloji, Kheloji, Parasoji and Vithoji respectively. Shivapur adjacent to Khed was a Peth established in the name of Shivaji Maharaj. Let's learn. The words budru and kurd are used to show that the two villages are different. The original town is Budruk and the new one is Kurd. For example, Vadgaon Budruk and Vadgaon Kurd. Paragana. Now let us study about the third part of the village administration, that is a Paragana. Many villages together made a Paragana, but the number of villages was not the same in all Parganas. For example, the Pune Pargana was a big Pargana. It consisted of 290 villages. There were 64 villages in the Chakan Pargana. The Shirwal Pargana was small. Okay, it had only 40 villages. Now, who were the Watandars? Let's see the table. The Deshmukh and the Deshpande were the Watandar officers of the Pargana. The Deshmukh was the chief of Patils in Pargana. The Deshmukh did at the Pargana level what the Patil did at the village level. The Deshpande was the chief of all Kulkarnis in the Pargana. The Deshpande did at the Pargana level the work that Kulkarnis did at the village level. These Watandar officers were the link between the people and the government. So this is about a village, then a kasbah and pargana. In case of enemy invasion or drought, these watandars represented the grievances of the people to the government. Sometimes these officers misused their powers. They collected more money from the people than was due or did not remit the money so collected to the government in time. On such occasions, the people suffered harassment. Do you know? Watan is an Arabic word. In Maharashtra, it is used to refer to hereditary land for which the holder does not have to pay revenue. So one has total claim on this land. So it is a hereditary land. The meaning of the word Watan. Now let's learn about the calamity of a famine. Agriculture was dependent on rainwater. If it did not rain, crops would fail. The prices of food grains rose. It became difficult for the people to get food grains and other things. There was no fodder for the cattle. Water became scarce. It became difficult for people to live in the village. They were forced to leave the village. When there is no source of livelihood, then the people will have to leave their homes. A famine was a great calamity for the people. A great famine occurred in Maharashtra in 1630 CE. People were greatly distressed due to this famine. It has been described in these words. People were ready to sell themselves for a piece of bhakri, but there was nobody to buy them. That means they were ready to sell, means do any type of work, become slaves just for a piece of bhakri. But that too nobody was there to give them. There was a severe scarcity of food grains. Entire families were destroyed. Cattle and farm animals died. So, such was the condition during a famine which occurred in Maharashtra in 1630 CE. Agriculture was devastated. The famine put an end to industries. All financial transaction came to a standstill, means to a halt. People had to wander to faraway regions in search of a livelihood. It was a great challenge to bring back to normalcy the devastated life of the people. So, to restore the normal life, it was very difficult. Such was the condition during this great famine in Maharashtra. Now, let us learn about the work of the Varkari movement. Okay, India has a great history about the Varkari movement. Society was greatly influenced by blind beliefs and rituals. People had become fatalistic and inert. They had lost all initiative. The condition of the common people was miserable. In such circumstances, the sons in Maharashtra endeavored to inspire the masses. Means the masses were carried on by blind faith, beliefs, and rituals. They did not follow the correct way, as we say, or the right way to live or to ha- enjoy the life. So they had lost all initiative, like nobody was taking initiative, coming like and expressing to them what they're supposed to do, what is right, what is wrong. So that time the sons in Maharashtra took up the challenge to educate the masses. Okay. In Maharashtra, the tradition of sons, which began with Sant Naneshwar and Sant Namdev, was carried on by sons coming from various strata of the society. So, people from all strata of society were part of the Sant tradition. So, different sons came forward. When you read the textbook, you will get a detailed information. Various sons are mentioned on page 15 of your textbook. So let us now study some work done by great sons which are mentioned in this chapter. Sant Namdev. He was a great sant of the Varkari movement. He was a skilled organizer. He performed excellent kirtans as well. He awakened a sense of equality in men and women belonging to all castes through the medium of kirtans. His pledge was Nachu Kirtanache Rangi, Nyandip Lau Jagi. His Abhanga compositions are well known. Many sons as well as common people were influenced by his teachings. He went up to the Punjab propagating his thoughts. His compositions are included in the Guru Granth Sahib of Sikhs. He propagated the message of Bhagavad religion in all quarters. He built a memorial to Sant Chokhamela at Pandharpur. His work is unforgettable. So, you have already heard about Sant Namdev. Here is a brief summary of his work. Next, we shall study about Sant Nyaneshwar. He was a great sant in the Varkari movement. He wrote the Bhavaratha Dipika or Naneshwari, which elucidates the meaning of the Sanskrit Bhagavad Gita. He also composed the Amrutanubhav. He preached the importance of the path of devotion through his works and compositions. He showed a simple way of worship and conduct which the common people could follow easily. He gave the prestige of a religion to the Varkari movement. Though his life was spent in extremely adverse circumstances, means in bad situation, he never lost the calm of his mind and never harbored bitterness. He was never bitter. never angry with anyone. His Pasaidan in Naneshwari uplifts the mind. The poetic composition of his brothers, Sant Nivruttinath and Sant Sopandev and sister Muktabai, are well known. So that was a short paragraph on Sant Naneshwar. Now let's learn about Sant Eknath. He was a great sant of the Bhakti movement in Maharashtra. You have learned about the Bhakti movement in the previous chapters. His compositions are many and diverse. They include Abhanga, Gavlana, Bharud, etc. He has stated Bhagavad Dharma in detail and in a simple manner. He has portrayed people's life in Bhavarth Ramayana through the story of Ram. He explained in Marathi the Bhakti part of the Sanskrit word Bhagavat. His Abhangas show the warmth of devotion. He demonstrated through his own conduct that there is no need to renounce worldly matters for attaining the highest truth, Paramarth. He was a teacher of the people in the true sense of the term. He believed that our Marathi language was inferior to no other language. He asked the Sanskrit scholars forcefully, संस्कृत वाणी देवे केली तरी प्राकृत काय चोरापासून झाली. He heavily criticized those who hated other religions. That means secularism was a value that he followed strongly. He did not like people who interfered in others' religions or hated other religions. So, this way, Sant Eknath, through his devotion and hard work, influenced the lives of many people. Next, Santukaram. He belonged to Dehu near Pune. His compositions or abhangas are very pleasing and lucid, reaching the greatest poetic heights. His Gatha is a precious treasure of the Marathi language. He asks us to find God by showing love to the unhappy and the tormented in the following lines. जे का रंजले गांजले त्यासी म्हणे जो आपुले तोची साधू ओळखावा देव तेथेची जाणावा. With this viewpoint, he threw in the river Indrayani the documents of the loans that people had borrowed from him. And in this way, he freed many poor families from the bond of loan. So, he criticized the hypocrisy and superstition in the society in very strong terms. And he set an example through his own actions. He stressed that devotion, that means bhakti, should be coupled with morality. Okay, his teachings can be summed up as जोडोनिया धन उत्तम व्यवहारे उदास विचारे वेच करी. Some dogmatic people opposed the social awakening that he had undertaken and sang his abhangas in the Indrayani. Sant Tukaram faced the opposition with noble courage. Okay, Sant Tukaram's disciples and associates were of different castes and creeds. So that's all about Sant Tukaram. You can go through the textbook for a detailed information. So, what was the work of sons? Sons gave the message of equality to people. They taught humanity. They preached that people should live together in harmony, unity, and love. Their work resulted in social awakening. So, people who were following blind beliefs and rituals were now awakened, realized their mistakes. So the sons taught how to live in the face of foreign invasions, drought like situations, or any other natural calamities. Their teachings proved to be a big support for people. Their work created self confidence among the people of Maharashtra. So, this was the great work done by sons. Ramdas Swami. So, let's learn about one more sant to conclude this chapter. He was from Jamb in Marathwada. He explained the importance of physical fitness to the people. Maratha Tituka Melvava, Maharashtra Dharma Padvava. This message of Ramdas Swami is famous. He gave practical education and lessons in good conduct through his works like Dasbodh, Karunashtaka, Manache Shlok. He stated the importance of people's movement and organization and founded the Samarth Sampradaya. Chapel was the center of this Sampradaya. He propagated the worship of Ram and Hanuman. He traveled far and wide to propagate his thoughts. So, this was all about the work of sons. After this, inspiration for independence during foreign rule. So, such was the political, social, cultural situation in Maharashtra before the times of Shivaji Maharaj. In that period, Maharashtra was under the control of Adil Shahi and other powers. It was not independent. Even so, some personalities and streams of thoughts were dreaming of freedom. Among them, Shahaji Maharaj, who is considered to be a visionary of Swaraj, was on the forefront. So, in the next chapter, you will see that how Shahaji Maharaj was a visionary and he laid the foundation of the Swaraj. So, students, do read the chapter from your textbook for a better understanding. Stay safe, keep learning, and thank you.